Hello guys, welcome back. So this is a weekly review for the week starting Monday September 4th through September 8th, and as you all know, we start with the dollar index. Last week we had some really exciting price action with the dollar index coming down, and then we saw an exciting move to the upside because we had NFP Friday, and we closed just a little bit above the price action we had for the previous week before last week. Now last week I told you that my bias for the week was obviously this buy side, which is here, and we have still not realized that yet, and it's still valid. So this week I'm expecting an open, maybe price trades down a bit down and then rally up. I want to see this buy side taken out. I want to see price go above this buy side. This is for the weekly profile. Then for the daily on dollar index, I would still like to see this buy side taken. This is the same buy side we saw on our weekly time frame. This is the same buy side we saw on our weekly time frame. So I would love to see price open, trade down a little, and then gravitate and take out this high. This is what I want to see on the dollar index for this coming week. Now let's talk about euro dollar. We quickly check out the weekly time frame. Okay, now if this is your first time watching this video, we talked about this weekly volume imbalance some weeks ago, and then we had that as our objective, and then we traded up to this weekly objective. Now since that has been realized, we've seen lower prices for a while now. Now the question is, what is my bias for euro dollar this week? I am still bearish. Remember, I walked you through how we will be seeing lower prices right after we hit this high, and last week this was our price action before last week, and I said I would like to see this sell side taken out. I said I was bearish last week, and then we saw price traded up to this point. Remember, when we have a fair value gap, we'll talk about this price action when we go on our daily time frame, but generally we have closed below this fair value gap on our weekly time frame. Yes, a fair value gap, I repeat, I'll always say this for some of you who are watching this my channel for the first time. A fair value gap is when we have a 3 candles formation in a premium or discount array. In this case, we are on discount. We have candles 1, candle 2, candle 3, and then we have a gap between candles 3 and candles 1. The gap in the sense that the wick of candle 3, the low, and the high of candles 1, they do not overlap. We do not see this coming down and this going up. So there is a gap between here and here. This is what we call a fair value gap. Now, markets would always want to revisit fair value gaps. So in a case when market comes back to a fair value gap, trades down to the fair value gap and reacts from it, we say the fair value gap is being respected. It acts as real support. In some other cases, when we have price trading and closing, remember, emphasis on closing, price closes below the fair value gap, it becomes an inversion fair value gap. So this was a fair value gap, but now that we have seen price close below it, we will now call this an inversion fair value gap. So we have this as inversion fair value gap. Now I am expecting price to gravitate towards this sell side. Inversion fair value gap in most cases acts as resistance. So now that we've closed below this, we might see price come down a little, come up, respect this inversion fair value gap and then gravitate to the sell side. That's for the weekly time frame for the euro dollar. Daily time frame euro dollar. Okay, so over the past few weeks, days, last week we closed below this fair value gap. It became an inversion fair value gap. This past week we saw price gravitating, coming back to trade into this fair value gap again. We see the bodies of these candles respecting the midpoint of this inversion fair value gap and then quickly reacting from it, trading down below this inversion fair value gap for the weekly time frame. So on our daily time frame, I'm still expecting lower prices to trade below this very sell side here. Let's go to the next. GBPUSD. So last week I mentioned that on pound dollar I was bearish. I said I would love to see us trade into this consequent encroachment of the weekly wick. A consequent encroachment of a wick is the midpoint of a wick. When we have a long wick, the midpoint is referred to as the consequent encroachment. So this long wick, the midpoint of it is called consequent encroachment. I might be making some videos on my YouTube channel to explain these terms properly. So here was my drawn liquidity, and that remains the same. This coming week, I would expect to see price go up a little and then trade down to this consequent encroachment and ultimately to this weekly bullish order block, which is this black candle. I wouldn't want to go below this for now, and then how we trade into it will determine if we'll still be going lower or not. Daily time frame pound dollar. So on our daily time frame, I still favor the downside. This was our price action for Friday, and then I would love to see this sell side taking out, trading into this consequent encroachment of this week, and maybe ultimately down to this order block we have on our weekly time frame. This is the order block, the bullish order block. On our daily time frame, it's 4 consecutive candles. I would want to go deep into this. It's quite deep. Order blocks are quite deep than most of us know about them. So let's talk about the last one for today, which is the Canadian dollar weekly time frame. Now, I said last week that I'm favoring up prices, which is here, this buy side, and that remains the same. This week, I would love to see price open, trade down a little, and then we'll go above this buy side for the Canadian dollar. And then on our daily time frame, this is what we saw for last week. Last week I mentioned that this is a fair value gap. Remember, a fair value gap is when we have 3 candles. 1, 2, 3. Look at candles 3, the high of it, and the low of candles 1. Extend that to the right. That is our fair value gap. This whole gap here is a fair value gap. Markets would always refer to this, and they usually give us insights on what to look for in price. When we trade above fair value gaps, when we close above them like we did here, I mentioned this last week, that I would love to see price come back down to trade into the fair value gap. When we close above fair value gaps, they become inversion fair value gap, which means price would most likely, in most cases, come back down and treat these fair value gaps as resistance. So now look at, I want to extend this to the right, look at how price respected the midpoint of this inversion fair value gap. This is the midpoint. Look at the bodies of the candle. The wicks do the damage. The bodies tell the story. And now we came traded into it, and then we closed above the inversion fair value gap, and now we should be expecting higher prices, and we'll trade above this buy side liquidity on our daily time frame, on our weekly time frame, which we can also see on our daily time frame indicated here. I hope you learned something from this, and I hope you found this insightful. I will be doing more videos on my channel, and if you find this very helpful, I would like you to subscribe, to like, to comment, and ultimately to share this video. And until I talk to you next time, I wish you good luck and be safe.